I've been robbed at gunpoint and stalked and followed in Baltimore. I felt so angry. The mall that I was in just gave me a flashback. Welcome everyone, my name is Kai and I'm a solo explorer who loves to travel, nature, knowledge, and healthy overall well-being. This channel is a way for me to document and share a piece of my experience with you. Thank you for being here and engaging, subscribing, and liking my videos. I appreciate each and every one of you. All the solo traveling that I have done has been very rewarding and very enjoyable for the most part, until I decided to go visit my own hometown, which is Baltimore, Maryland. But I was going there for an occasion, and while I was there at that occasion, I realized I was emotionally triggered by being there. And anything can cause an emotional trigger. An emotional trigger, just these psychological triggers or places that jog your memory or trigger an event that happened in your life. And it could be places, objects, anything that will cause an intense reaction from you emotionally as a result of being there. There were so many things that happened to me in my hometown of Baltimore that the moment that I landed, I was immediately on guard. Now, I live in a big city now. I live in Atlanta and I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. And so I'm always on guard in big cities anyway, but I was so confused at my response in the way that I was really reacting to being there. Not the part of being on guard, but just other things that were popping up for me. And it was causing a whole lot of pain in my body. I recognized that my body hurt after I landed in Baltimore. And I was just really there to visit family for an event that was there. And I said, I'm just going there for the event and I'm not going to be out very long, and I'm definitely not going to be out past dark. Did a quick visit for my family that also traveled there, just to show my face and let them know that I was there. And then the second day of being there, I had to go to the mall because I needed some shoes for the event. I was physically hurting the whole time that I was in this mall. I mean, hurting worse than the first day that I was there. And this was not ever an issue for me when I was back home in Atlanta, and most of the time I was out in nature whenever I was outside. But for some reason, being there, my body was having a very negative reaction to being there. I go on trips where it involves nature. I'm usually finding places like parks and stuff where I can ground, because grounding always alleviates pain in my body and inflammation in my body. When I was there, to me, it was like being on a concrete slab everywhere that I was going, and it wasn't a whole lot of places to just kind of ground or just be out in nature for the places and the areas that I was going to visit. Your places can evoke very strong memories and emotions for a lot of people, especially if it's been something traumatic that happened. And the mall that I was in just gave me a flashback of the last time that I was there, because the last time that I was at that particular mall, I was there with like a group of classmates, like a kind of like a semi-reunion for old friends that I hadn't seen in over 20, 30 years. And so we met at that mall, and then one of the people that was there was a very close friend of mine, and that person in Baltimore was shot and killed just driving in their vehicle. Whenever you do decide to travel to a hometown, and I should have thought about this before, it is always really, really a good idea to do your research and then planning where you're going to stay and hopefully it would be somewhere away from some of the more triggering places that you may have been in before. And so for that, I did limit who I was going to be visiting. I limited where I was going to go because I know Baltimore. I know very much of what Baltimore is like. And I was planning while I was there. I was sticking to my plans regardless of, what may come up. So I set the boundaries and I kept safety as a priority while I was there. And while I was there too, I shared my Uber ride with my daughter at home and with my niece who was there. So they always knew where I was, because while I was in Baltimore, I've been robbed at gunpoint. I've been sexually abused in Baltimore. I've been stalked and followed in Baltimore. I have been in so many very precarious and crazy situations in Baltimore. And I've had the worst type of relationships end in Baltimore. It was just like the most traumatic place for me in general. Everything that a person could go through in life that's traumatizing, I pretty much experienced in Baltimore. One thing I really wish I had done before I went there is to do some kind of mindfulness practices, even though I did try to mentally prepare my mind before the trip, because when I first initially thought about going, I got tense immediately. But I did some little things, but I don't think it was enough, because I didn't have any idea how badly I was going to be triggered after getting there. So journaling and meditating and just doing some grounding exercises before is always a good thing to do as you're researching and planning the trip to go somewhere that might have a lot of negative memories. I had to text my daughter, telling her what I was going through. And then I text a really close friend of mine, somebody that really understands that kind of thing even more. I literally was reaching out to them because I needed to vent. I felt so angry there, and I couldn't understand why I was so angry, but I was very angry while I was there. I was very tense when I was in the place. My hips were hurting, my knees were hurting, all the areas of my body were hurting that hadn't hurt in a long time because of the grounding practices that I do regularly. But I had to remind myself to stay present and do some deep breathing and grounding while I was there. And I had to plan places that was going to be safer for me, and places that were more comfortable. I had to make sure that I managed my expectations before going there, and I had to be realistic with myself about what I was expecting. And so I was intentional to say to myself, you're going there for this event. You're going to enjoy yourself. You're going to have a nice time. You're going to enjoy seeing everybody that you haven't seen in a long time. You're going to take pictures. You're going to dance. You're going to do all these things. I had to do that in order to help myself with that trip, pre-planning and while I was there and until I left. I also had to allow space for some of my mixed emotions that I was having, because if I didn't do that, I would have probably kind of beat myself up. So I had to take a lot of self-care. I had to do some self-care practices while I was there in order to get myself together. And my friend who I was talking to while I was there, she really helped me to ground myself and consider ways to take care of myself while I was there. So I truly appreciated that. And I appreciated that type of friend in my life right now, because yeah, that was just an awful experience that I started to have while I was there. The third day that I was there, which was the day that it was pretty much free for me to do whatever I wanted to do. So I wanted to kind of look at Baltimore in the eyes of a tourist. So what I did was connected with my surroundings, and I reframed my experience on that third day. And so I decided that I would go see places like the Baltimore Inner Harbor, Federal Hill, and that whole area, because that whole area is more touristy. And so I wanted to go there as a tourist, and that's what I did. And the other thing that I decided to do while I was there was just kind of look at it from a different lens. Because when you're there, most of the time, when somebody goes back to their home, they're just looking at old areas and, being reminded of different things that happened when they were there. So this time I went and I was like, oh my gosh, look at that. And oh my gosh, look at that. As if I had never seen it before. Some things were new anyway, but I went with a different perspective. And then so I had a new view, as if I had never seen some of those things before. And I also was able to remember how some of those places looked before they were all built up for tourists, because the Baltimore Inner Harbor definitely didn't have as much as they have there now when I was a little girl. And so it was just like me looking at that and seeing how much different it was. And that way I'm not focusing on my past experience. I'm focusing on making new memories and experiencing it in a different way, because now I'm considering myself an explorer and a solo traveler. So looking at Baltimore as a solo traveler and an explorer gave me a whole different vibe for being there. So self-care became extremely important for me, and I remembered to take breaks and be kind to myself as I was there. And when I went down to the Inner Harbor, there was a boat that was going out into the water. It's I forgot what it's called, but I'll put that out on the screen for you to see. But I decided to just see if I could, get on that boat, because it was getting ready to go out. And so I paid for that. I was there by myself, but I enjoyed myself tremendously. They played music on it. They served meals. It was just a great experience the whole time. And then after I finished with that, because it was a 2-hour cruise, basically. And after that, I went up onto Federal Hill. And I just, laid my blanket out and had a little picnic out there and just took my shoes off and grounded. And all of that brought me back to myself. And I was so grateful that I knew to do that. It just really gave me a whole different view of where I grew up. One thing that I was able to do after the whole thing was a reflection of my whole entire trip. And so what I did was, after I finished everything and did all the touristy things, and when I went back to my room, I took some time and I just kind of reflected. I journaled some of the things that I was feeling and experiencing while I was there. I talked to my friend who is so dear to me and discussed like my feelings And I think it's always a good idea for people when they get triggered like that to discuss it with a close friend, a mental health professional, a mentor, somebody that can help you process what you went through. And that just takes the burden off of you. It's always good to have support and connect with somebody. And then I just celebrated the journey in itself, because I'm like, yes, you did it. I mean, I went to different countries and was able to do that by myself and wasn't as on guard as I was when I went to my own hometown, which is kind of funny to me. But I acknowledge how brave I was to be able to go back, because I had said that I was not going back to Baltimore. And the only times that I had to go back to Baltimore was for very sad occasions. But this time it wasn't a sad occasion. It was a celebration of someone's birthday. And so that was a great occasion to be going there. And so I acknowledge my bravery. I acknowledge my personal growth, because I'm always growing and there's always room to get better. And I achieved this on my own, and I got through it with support and with care for myself. I just want people, and I hope that people get from this, my story is something that will allow you to challenge yourself when you find that a place that you want to go might be triggering for you. You know, I encourage you to embrace those emotions and discuss them if you need to, and allow yourself to walk through them until you get to the other side. Because although I was so concerned about the trip in the beginning, I was able to reframe that in a way that make it more of an enjoyable. I sat with the feelings, I dealt with the feelings, I was confused about the feelings and everything, but I was able to, reframe it. And now I feel so blessed and so proud of myself that if I did ever want to go back to Baltimore, I'm going back with a different thought process about it. Love it. Anybody listening to this, if you have a similar story or even want to share your experience with some place that you may have went that got you all triggered, I would love to hear your story in the comment. We'll read about your experience in the comment. Thank you for everybody for listening and watching us all the way to the end. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for leaving comments and engaging with me. I appreciate all of that. And I really appreciate the fact that I've gotten so many new subscribers. In this past year, I've gotten a lot of subscribers, about 1,000 subscribers more than before. Before I had, when I started exploring and traveling and stuff like that. So I'm so grateful that y'all are here. I hope there's something in my videos that make you want to come back and see more. In my upcoming video, I plan on going camping in my new vehicle. She's black as night and doing it right. This is Raven, Baltimore Raven. In the meantime, everyone, good mental health, good spiritual health, and as always, good physical health. Y'all take great care.